Welcome to 28 Days and Beyond, where we're celebrating our history, our heritage, our culture, and our own authentic voice. And today we have a lovely guest with us. Welcome to the set, Marie.
Hi.
Marie, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I am African American.
Okay.
I say that because I'm Nigerian and American. I consider myself as both. I am one of four.
Okay.
I have two younger siblings, Ashley and Anthony, and a older brother, Daniel.
Okay.
Grew up in Maryland, Nigeria, Westchester, PA. Went to Westtown High School in Westchester, and now I'm here.
Now, a little research on you and kind of talking off camera. You spent 6 years here first in America, then you went 6 years back to Nigeria, right?
Yes.
And then you came back. So you was 12 when you came back, right?
Yes.
So what are some of the differences that you experienced coming back to America that was different in Nigeria?
Well, for starters, when my parents told me I was coming back, I was very excited because at a certain age in Nigeria, there are less and less activities for, the youth to participate in, and education starts to go down a little bit.
Okay.
So my parents decided we should move back, come get a good education. It was hard at first coming back, transitioning. We moved back to the suburbs. I think it was very different. People would ask me questions like, oh my gosh, you're from Nigeria. What's it like there? Do you live in huts? Do you see lions over there like we see squirrels? Like questions like those, which now I've grown accustomed to, but at first it was very hard.
I'm sorry. How was the food? What was the food difference?
Very different.
Very different.
The palate is very different over there. A lot of cultural food.
Okay.
A lot of veggies, yams, potatoes, rice. Whereas here, there's everything and anything.
Okay. So you grew up in the suburbs. You went to a private school. Did you get? I don't want to use the word penalized, but what was it like growing to a private school, or did people have certain perceptions of you?
I think so. At first, I went to public middle school, and so when I told my peers that I was going to private school, they were asking me, "Oh, are you going to play basketball? You going to play a sport?" No, I'm going for academics. And when I got there, it was more like, "Oh, I wonder if she's going to be good at this sport, that sport." And I think I got more criticism from my peers back home from middle school than in private school. And there were maybe when I was there 5 or to 10 black kids in the school, not a lot of black faculty at all.
Wow.
And so we weren't really paid attention to. We kind of had to fend for ourselves. So yeah, it was difficult.
When people first meet you, one, can they tell if you African or if you black? Which is almost kind of crazy to ask that question, but you know what I'm saying, African American or black.
I don't think they can tell unless I specify.
Okay.
But a lot of the times I will specify and say that I was Nigerian, which from there more questions will arise.
Okay.
Oh, I say I lived in Nigeria. Oh, you lived in Nigeria. Wow, that's interesting. Then more questions come from that. But then I feel like they expect me to be, lesser than the typical African American, not to know as much about the American community per se, because I'm from Nigeria, which is not the case.
Okay. So when people find out that you're Nigerian and not black, we're going to use that terminology, are you treated differently? And if so, why do you think?
I don't think, well, yes, I'm treated differently.
Okay.
I think people are more accepting that I'm Nigerian and not, I feel like there are not a lot of Africans here, so when they do get them like especially in private schools, when they do receive them, it's more like a learning process for them, and so they want to learn more. But at the same time, they don't know a lot, so a lot of the culture I come from is kind of like lost in the mix. And so sometimes they'll expect me to be like the typical African American. Sometimes they'll be like, well, aren't you Nigerian? Why would that affect you? Questions like those.
So people think you grew up in huts at times, right? Because they've never been there. So more than huts there. Pizza Hut we have here, but they don't have huts over there. So do you feel like you always have to educate people when it comes to those, just lack of awareness? Does that burden you or just get on your nerves, more or less?
All the time.
All the time, okay.
I always feel like I have to educate people. Not even just my white friends, like my black friends too, because obviously not everyone knows, and just because you're black doesn't mean you would know. But I feel like I always have to tell people where I'm from. And I think a big one for me is racism. I feel like racism isn't as prominent when you're in Nigeria. You don't see a lot of it. Yeah. And so when I came here, a lot of the things that would affect my friends, I don't want to, this sounds really bad, but
No, fine.
I couldn't not relate, but I wasn't as affected as they were, because I guess the culture there is so different that coming here, it was like, well, my parents would always say, well, you're Nigerian. And I'm like, well, I'm also, like, people are not going to see, like, you just see you as African American. So, I have to share the struggle, but at the same time, internally, I feel like it doesn't affect me as much as my peers are affected.
So when this is great. So when your parents say you're Nigerian, you're not black, and I feel this internal struggle that you have. Well, let me ask you this: how does your siblings feel about that? Do you ever have those kind of conversations with your two? You got two brothers and one sister, right?
I have two brothers and one sister.
So you ever had those kind of conversations with them?
I think so. I think that we were all born here, and so we all lived in Nigeria as well. Okay. But I think we have a stronger connection to African Americans here than maybe my parents did. Maybe because they're not from here per se. They just live here and were naturalized. But my siblings feel this. I feel like they feel the same way. Okay. They go through a lot of the same problems, especially my younger brother. My older brother, I think he had it a little easier because he played basketball, so people kind of disregarded him from that. Like, he played basketball, we don't really need to worry about him. He's not a young black man trying to get an education out here. But we try to educate our parents and let them know that, okay, yes, we're Nigerian, but at the same time, we are African Americans. And to the general public, you're black, you're African American. And so while Nigeria might be a part of that, that's not what everyone's going to see. So unless it gets harder educating people time and time again, but yeah.
Yeah. And you got a brother that played a little bit of basketball, right?
Yes.
Okay. So when did you come to Villanova? Because I know sometimes people think it's the pressure because your brother go here. We will say that. We will put a shameless plug in for that one. But
well, it was a very big struggle for me. I was like, oh, Daniel goes here, I'm not coming here. There is no way. He's a typical protective big brother. I visited the school the first time. I was like, I'm going to keep my options open. Visited the second time. And by the third time I visited, I completely fell in love with the community and the atmosphere. It just felt very accepting, much like my high school, Westtown. And at that point, I had to put aside the fact that my brother went here, and I knew that I would get a lot of pushback from people for going to school that my brother went to, like, oh, did you get in because your brother went here? Like, people would think that I wasn't smart enough to be in here. But I put a big emphasis on, proving people wrong. So,
well, we thank you for coming to the set, Marie. Hey, we thank you for tuning in with 28 Days. We're celebrating our history, our heritage, and our culture, and our own authentic voice. And these stories are intriguing as we bring more and more guests. We ask you to tune in once again, and we thank you for showing up, being a good audience. Thank you, and have a great day.